Hey guys, I just wanted to really quickly run through what JPEG.CAM looks like now that we are on a version 2. If you've never used this before, it is an application that you launch on your older Sony cameras. It's actually an APK, which is an Android application. Unfortunately, you just can't run them on new cameras, but you will see there's a couple things loaded in here. That Open Memories tweak is essentially what opens the entire environment up. So you'll want to look that up to be able to figure out how to get JPEG.CAM loaded. You can download JPEG.CAM from going to jpeg.cam. But once you load it up, you'll see on version 2, it looks a little bit different than before. At the top, you need to press enter to toggle through everything now so you can't accidentally change things. But at the top, you'll see I'm scrolling through different slots, and I'll get into that in just a second. But that's essentially where I've saved everything. Up here, my battery indicator, this is for previewing. Anything that you take on JPEG.CAM will be in its own folder, so it doesn't get mixed in with all your originals. And this is how you preview it on camera. We'll see that as well. Here's your exposure, your ISO, your aperture, your shutter speed. Right now I just have it set for DMF, manual focus, and single shot autofocus. You can change through your PASM, PASM, there we go. And if I go into menu, this is where all the goods are. So in this version 2, you'll see a total redesign. We have an awesome contributor, ZB, I think is what he goes by. Reach out to me, man. We talk all the time. Let me know what your real name is if that's not it. But he did a pretty much complete overhaul of the UI. So we have these nice new tabs. We added in some nice things, as well as we have processing frequency. So right now it's set to instant. It says instant. There's processing delay. What it really means is one shot. You can set it for 3 shots, 5 shots, or manual. If you do manual, you can come in here and queue things up to process, clear your queue, clear selected, things like that. So I typically go with instant, and I'm okay. I take 1 shot, and I know that it's going to take 15 seconds on my half resolution setting, and we'll get into that. It's typically what it works out to. But as far as recipes, let's dive into this. So you now have things organized by base, color, effects, grain, and analog. And we'll go through these. You could also go back if you didn't mean to be in here. But as far as base goes, so at the top where I was toggling through items, these are recipe slots. So you have 10 slots that you can name whatever you want. Put all sorts of variations of settings with them, and then it's just quick access. So for example, let's look at my slot number 1. I named as feels good in here. So current slot name, I have 4 saved. So these are reading from my SD card. I'm in feels good. If I want to change that to something else, I can do so. There's the other recipe, another recipe, so that's everyday gold. So now I've changed slot 1 to that. But instead I'm just going to keep it as feels good. I have a foundation base. So the style here that you're seeing, these are just your creative styles that you're accustomed to. So standard, vivid, neutral, and that's going to be the base for your JPEG. Micro contrast, in my testing, I haven't noticed it do a whole lot, but users have told me that it changes the feel of the image. kind of rounds off rough edges and things like that. That's a setting that I found deep in the settings whenever I looked at the parameters of what was available within the Sony cameras. Tone and style. So again, these are settings that already exist. So you already have contrast, you have saturation, you have sharpness, right? All of those you already know of. This is just letting you combine these in a way that you hadn't necessarily been able to before. Dynamic range. So these are not earth-shattering items on base. But where it starts to get really cool is, right, we have a white balance shift. You can always do that. But you also have a 6-axis color depths. Again, this was already in the settings, just buried in the parameters. So I dug through it, I did some testing, and I mapped it out. So what you're doing here is you're changing your red, your green, your blue, your cyan, your magenta, and your yellow. At a sensor level, you're shifting them up or down, not totally desaturating them, but the depth of them. So if you want more punch in your reds, and just that, this is where you would change it. If you want a little less green, this is where you would change that at. And you can save these down if you want. There is a matrix, which is a color mixer. So it's really saying here, your red levels. How much green do you want in your red? How much blue do you want in your red? How much green do you... so like you're going... There's 9 different settings, I believe, all together. And you're doing actual shifts. There are saved versions. So by prefix, or I should say by out of the gate is what I'm trying to say. By default, you have golden hour, you have Pacific North green, cinematic, bleach bypass, aerochrome. So you're not really getting a true aerochrome because we're not seeing infrared light here, but it is inverting your colors. It'll shift it that much where you get a look that's similar. And then you can create your own. So you come down here and you dial these up and you can save it and name it as you want. Let's back out of that. What else can we show here? So now we're going into the FX. So FX, these are just the generic things that you typically have in your Sony camera. It's just giving you the option to save these all together with everything else that's going on. So if I were to turn on, for example, right, I could turn on toy camera. Hardly anybody ever uses that, but if I wanted to, I could. Let's look at edge shading. So edge shading was another one of these that was buried in the parameters. All it does is it shades the edges of your photo in a different color. So you have an option to do a strong push of red or a strong push of blue, and you have dials to adjust how much of it. Everything that I've shown so far will actually get baked into the JPEG that goes into the DCIM folder. So it is grading sorry, it is grading on the fly using the camera's processor. There's nothing like post-processing happening. You're just doing things as it is in the camera and you're saving them down. And you can get some really creative looks that way, but where it really starts to shine, but it takes more processing time, is when you get into these other items in here. So under grain, you start to see some really cool things. So you have LUTs, and these are the actual LUTs that you have saved on your SD card. And you can toggle through them. However many cube files you want to put in here, you can do so. And these are 33 point, I think is what it is, cube files. And you won't see this in the live preview. So if you have like a black and white LUT and you apply it, your preview is still going to just show whatever you had set up in the screens before. This is post-processing in camera. So after that picture is taken, it'll bake it in and you'll see added time as a result. You can change the opacity and grain amount. So again, on your SD card, you will have a folder where you can store grain textures. They're PNG files. They can either be 512 by 512 or 1024 by 1024, and the camera will apply that grain texture on our website alongside with Recipe Studio, which shows you basically everything that you have here on your computer screen. There's grain brain is what I'm calling it, and you can create your own grain patterns that you can export, save to your SD card, and load them up here. So you have the option to do high, medium, I think it's high, very high. Okay, so we got multiple steps here. Sorry, it's been a while since I put all of this together. Grain type is just, that's actually changing between your grains that you have saved. So I have Kodak Gold is one that I exported. I have large, I have medium, and I have small. So out of the gate, what I'm doing right now is I'm putting small, medium, and large on your SD card as soon as you load this up. And then you can get your own. So Kodak Gold, for example, is one that I grabbed, or I made on Grain Brain and I loaded here. Vignette, just as it sounds, right? You toggle through this, set them up. So let's go to analog. So there's a lot more settings here. This goes along the same idea. Grain and analog are going to add processing time. So you can stack this as deep as you want, but each of these is a process. So you can expect that processing time to get longer as you go. So highlight roll off, just like you would think. It starts to roll off those highlights so it gives a more filmic vibe. Shadow roll off. So instead of crushing to deep blacks, it tries to elevate them so you have like a greenish tone black in there. Subtractive saturation, so we're trying to mimic that film look again. Color chrome and chrome blue kind of function in the same way as subtractive saturation, but we're going after specific colors here. And you can go down into halation. Halation is a type of it's applying like a bloom across the photo in just the spots that are near peaking, and it puts like an amber orange glow around them. These are very old cameras, keep that in mind. So like I think we're at like 14 years now, and we're running on the oldest version of Android imaginable. Not the oldest, but it's really old, and we have really limited specs made available from Sony of what can run in the Android environment. So I think it looks pretty good, but you'll need to test it out. And that one goes, I think it's just weak, strong. Yeah, so it doesn't go too crazy. And then diffusion, I really enjoy diffusion. It can be a bit much, but you'll see it goes all the way down to an 1/8. And this is, like, I wouldn't necessarily say, if you were to hold an 1/8 black mist or something like that, and it's just, it might be not be 1-to-1, but I'm trying to at least show different strengths within here, and you can dial them in. Whenever it says full, it's going to apply a diffusion across the entire frame, and then where you see local, it is specifically on those peaks, so much like halation, so like where you're getting a shine off a metal table or a bright light in the corner, it's going to diffuse the edges of that. So those are your settings, and that is just for affecting the output of your JPEG in general. And then you also have settings in themselves. So whenever I was talking about half resolution, what does that mean? I am downsampling whatever your max resolution. Most of these cameras run at 24 megapixels. So to try to speed things up for you, because again, these are old processors and all that, you can downsample your 24 megapixel photo into half resolution, and they still look really good. You could even go into a proxy, which is like a 1/4 resolution, and those still actually look pretty decent. And full will also work. They're just going to take you a little while. Manual focus meter, let me turn that on. You're not going to really be able to see what it looks like because I have the camera just facing down. But if you were to do that, and you come over here, you will now see what says unmapped lens. If you're using manual focus lenses, you can, and this needs to be tested by more people, you can map that lens and it'll save as a profile here. And you're saying, I am doing, this is a f2.8, and my nearest focus point is this many feet away, whatever. And you can set that up, 0.1, but scroll, I'll say that this is that far away, this is that far away, and it will save it. So that is one thing that you could do here, and it will try to give you like a depth of field calculator down there. Again, if you use manual focus, test it out, let me know how it goes, because I would love to dial that in more. Let's go back into settings here. So turn that off, I don't need it. You have your rule of thirds grid, which is just on by default. You can turn that off and it'll save in your user preferences. Your JPEG quality, so just like size, you can turn down JPEG quality. Your CPU engine, so some of these cameras function a little bit better if you're running multi-core versus single core. This is just an option that's going to change how that those effects process. They're still going to be the same output, it just tries to use multi-core versus single core. And also in addition, there are many things in here. So you have creative modes. Now I changed it to off. So this is just your run-of-the-mill taking a shot. No big deal. This is what most people will probably use most of the time, I imagine. But you can also toggle it to Xpan crop, where it'll crop off the tops and the bottom, and it'll save it not with a crop, but in that actual shape. So something that we just recently added in. Diptych is, if you're familiar with it, you'll have a photo on the left, you'll have a photo on the right, and they stitch together. And then you have multiple exposure. So when you do multiple exposure, this one needs like a lot of user testing, I think. I just added it, so I'd love to hear feedback, but I am allowing, I think, up to 9 maybe. Is it 9? Yeah, 9 max. So you can do multiple exposure of up to 9 shots, and I've only really tested it with 2, so go have fun with it. And you can change the blend mode, so you can do average or lighten currently. What else? Sorry guys, I feel like I'm rambling. I don't typically just talk about everything that goes on in the app. I need to update the user manual as well, so maybe this will be a user manual, kind of. You also have button mapping, so if you have a C1, C2, C3, C4, actually I don't even have C4 on here because C4 is usually a trash can. Your AEL button and your FN button. I currently have it set to focus magnifier. You can toggle through these, change them to different items. Let's go back to what I toggle through your creative modes. And that is basically the gist of it. Let me see what I got, because there's more to the camera than just the settings. If you go into play, I'm curious what I've taken pictures of recently. You can see in here you have little previews of them, and if you click on them, it'll bring up a low res, and it'll actually tell you this is a low res preview. So unfortunately, the way that the whole system works, the Android system, at least what I can find right now, will not support a full res view. Even though you can do that in Sony on the native app, it's just not working here, at least not for the time being. And the same thing with pressing the play button here. If you press that, it's going to automatically kick you out of the app and show you the previews from the DCIM folder, which is your non-graded images. So you have an option to delete here. You could go back. So that is how you see your images directly here. And if we go into network, so you have the ability to turn a camera hotspot on and connect via your phone, which will open up a web server where you can see your images, download your images that way. I know it's been funny on a few different camera models. I've been really working on this, and ZB has been working on it too, trying to get it working on his camera. What I have on here currently is what he put together, and he felt like it's pretty solid. So you guys test it. Let me know if any tweaking is needed. And then home Wi-Fi, so you're just going to connect to your router nearby and be able to access your photos via your computer without having to join a hotspot here. And I think that pretty much covers most of the big things in here. I don't know. A lot of work has gone into it. I'm sure there's things that could change. What I want to show, I think, next is probably it out in the wild being used, rather than these long drawn out, like this is what the app looks like, this is what it's doing type of videos. But as we're starting to get more and more people using this app in particular, I'm getting tons of questions. My user guide was outdated, so I wanted to at least get something out there so you guys see what it looks like now, and maybe it'll answer your questions. The one thing I will say is on the web server, there's an option right now to try to drop files into it, and it'll map them out to the right directories on your SD card. I know it's broken. It's something I need to look into. So if you're wanting to put, if you're wanting to put files on here, like recipe files, there's specifically a JPEG.CAM folder that gets written to your SD card. For grain, you'll put your PNG files into the grain folder that's within that JPEG.CAM. Recipes, you'll put into the recipe folder. For LUTs, you'll put into the LUTs folder. And I will mention that LUTs are cube files, and I am also toying with the idea of using, I think they're PNG files that, like, it reads off a grid, typically produced by Resolve. Is it a Holdclut? I might be pronouncing that wrong. But I'm wanting to be able to take the color mapping from those grids and then put it on here too. Our Recipe Studio actually does that. I want to be able to implement it directly on camera too. We're not there yet. Right now it's cube files. Matrix. So that matrix we were talking about where you can map things out, you could save your own. You could share those on the website. You could download them from the website. You could save them. And when you save these things on your camera, guys, like the recipes and the matrix and stuff, they write to that folder. So just something to keep in mind. Yeah, all of those things. What I say, LUTs, grain, recipes, matrix. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Open up the JPEG.CAM folder. Look at it. You'll immediately know what you can do. If you want to know where to source files from, if you go to jpeg.cam, you'll see a button on there that says Browse Recipes. Clicking that or the top bar on JPEG.CAM will take you to the sister site that all of this is spawned from, which is JPEG Cookbook, and it's got grain, it's got Recipe Studio, it's got the grain brain. I think I'm rambling now. It's got recipes from different cameras, it's got LUTs, it's got all sorts of stuff. So you're welcome to become a member there. You're probably going to find the APK file there anyway. I would love for people to start building things, sharing things there. Yeah, just use the app, enjoy it, and let me know how it's going.